Okay, so I'm going to continue tweaking, and at some point I may decide that it's perhaps taken too long and decide to pause the video or chop it out, because it is just a tedious process. It's not entirely without thought, and there's good stuff to mention, but it is just a matter of going through and tweaking. So I'm going to try to get through it kind of quick. Can't do it much quicker. But I'll be won't be stopping to explain as much in this particular video. I'm just gonna kind of go. We are at the it's not doing anything. We are at the high hour mark in this whole video tutorial series of getting your weapon in, and you know, the process is rather involved, as you can see. If you add on modeling your character, then you're looking at, a little bit, you got more time on that. There's painting it, you got all your materials and all that good stuff. So making a video game is not something that happens over the course of one afternoon. There's some art styles and simple ideas that make for absolutely awesome games that don't take that long. And obviously, if you have a larger team, it can help alleviate some of this stuff. So the more people you have working on these things, the better everything will go. Our team consists of, I don't know why. Control A. For some reason, coming in and out of the skin modifier gives me weird stuff. But the team we have on our game is 2 people. Been at it for a couple years now. Actually, more like 5 years, which is good because he's got a lot of practice, a lot of learning involved in making a game. If you're experienced game developer, you're one of those jack of all trades. Have your hand in everything. There's quite a bit to cover. And this here is just one of the many wonderful things you get to learn how to do making a video game. And it's rewarding, can be relaxing in its tedium. You can get yourself in the right mindset. If you're in a major rush to get everything done, you're pretty much in for it. Let's hit the right, yeah, mid one. It's collapsing a little more than I'd like. So I can help round that out here by backing off some of these to the wrist. A little issue getting that balanced out, but it's going to be okay. One of the little bit of good news is if you do take this particular mesh and use it, and you decide that you need to edit it, shape. Texture is easy to edit, but say you edit the shape. You can actually kind of edit the shape without really destroying the skin modifier, but you can always just save the skin modifier and then load it. There's a handy tool over here, advanced parameters. You can save these values, save your weight table, and then load it later if you need to move a bone around or something. This comes in really handy. But you can take this and morph it if you'd like. You can drop in detail, pretty much no problem. I'm actually going to let that go to make sure it doesn't get too thin right here. I'm going to let that one go a little bit. That looks a little more natural. There's a fold of skin that you get there anyway. See these points here, no matter which one I give it to, it's not going to look that great. However, it's pretty rare anybody can get to see up in there to the point where it's going to really hurt the game too badly. Just a matter of balancing. Oh, and something I should mention, UDK, I believe, supports up to, I think, I'm not sure, it's a good idea to quote me on this one, but I believe you can have up to 4 bones influencing a vert at any one time, which is good because it makes for better blends. I've used engines in the past where it's actually a limit of 2 bones, and that's really tough to work with, even though in a lot of cases we do only use 2 bones. Being limited to that entirely really is not that good. And you can see that something here got grabbed all crazy, all kinds of crazy. That's alright, it's easy fix. Just take it back to the wrist. This is my ring finger. Again, if you're working in full screen, you get a little bit more space here because I'm capturing at a lower resolution. It's kind of cutting off on me a little bit, so I gotta grab this and move it up and down and stuff. It's no big deal, but it's part of what I'm doing, so. You do actually get a fold of flappy skin right there, however, not really as much as is being shown here. Just going to give it a tad there. If I segmented this out, you know, if I had a lot more geometry in my whole, you know, hand in general, this would be a little easier. Though a little more work, because then I've got to worry about 500,000 more verts, which can, even though it might work out better, it's be just as difficult to work on. Might be a mistake doing those like that. I'll have to find out a little bit later. Again, I'm going to go ahead and let that fold like that, so it maintains the fatness of the finger. If you look at it out of wireframe, you know, can sometimes help you get a feel for how all this stuff's gonna blend. See, this vert right here is right on the joint, so it's really not moving anywhere. It's right on that right on the axis of the bone, pretty much. It barely moves, which can actually make things a little difficult because he doesn't want to go into one place or the other. So I'm just going to go with that for now. The other good thing is to say you call it done and you feel like everything's okay, and then you go and you animate it and you get into your animation, or you actually end up going all the way into export into UDK, and then you realize, oh wow, I've got this glaring really bad error. You can actually come back here and fix this and just re-export the skeletal mesh portion, and fix everything on all your animations. I'm trying to figure out where that point is. This is now my pinky. Actually, I need to give to the wrist. Some things are a lot easier to do than others. Excuse me. The hands they're actually not that bad, but a shoulder and armpit area, you can end up staying there tweaking that for an eternity and still never feel like you're good. It's the hardest part of any character model, is to get that ball joint to work when the arm's all the way, raising the hand all the way up and whatnot. It gets pretty daunting. It can be frustrating a little bit here and there. Again, it's using this technique, it's not so bad. You just keep on tweaking it until everything, just falls into place, and then you balance it out. And it does eventually, work itself out just like this does. The last model I had was not working out. The model itself was just not good. Again, I'm letting this stuff cross over on purpose to simulate the fact that the fat is kind of scrunching up together. Which might not be what I want to do in the end, but the fingers stay pretty, not working out too bad. Okay, and he's telling you that there's 4 things going on, and it looks like it's working alright. Okay, now I'm just going to get that down. Get these 2. Okay. So really what I got to do here is shift over some of the influence from this guy to thumb 2, because I really only worked in thumb 1. The good news is thumb 2 follows thumb 1, so it'll actually kind of just automatically fix itself once I start handing it over to thumb 2. At least I hope. Let's see. I really don't want any influence going there. Just need to kind of give it a bend and see what we're seeing here. Okay, I'll fix it a little bit more. See, we got some spiking going on. The other thing to take into account are your triangle flows. If you were following along with the modeling of the Glock portion of this, you saw that quite a bit of time and effort was spent managing the mesh flow, and that's important in animation more than ever, considering if you want to avoid things like this cut here, I need to turn this edge to go that way to let it triangulate the other way. But I'm not worried about that for now. Still, again, this would be much better triangulated that way. Obviously I can't do that too much. Can't go that way either. So I'm just gonna take this and go back and hit my wrist. At some point during the animation phase, I may find it necessary to go back here and fix this, considering a particular or a common pose. If this doesn't work out while the right hand is holding on to the gun, then it's really not working out at all, you know, and we're gonna have to come back here and fix it. Again, that's right on the, doesn't matter which way I send it, it's right joint axis. There's not a lot I can do about it. You see what I mean by having to blend one way and then blend the other? Doesn't always work out in all the directions that everything can move, so you gotta kind of back things off so it doesn't break. In either one, it might not look perfect in either one, but it doesn't break in either one either. Can't really turn your wrist too far this direction. You can see some of those things that I added to it. I gotta get back out in the case that it does go that way and get yourself into a little bit of trouble. So I don't back it off until it's perfect, because I know that'll ruin it in the other axis. And remember, the wrist can go this way and that way and this way and that way, but it cannot go that way. So I'm not worried if it's messed up like that. Now this one, this is the forearm twist bone. This is important because this does get your hand going sideways, and this can actually be a bit of a challenge to skin this guy. So that you don't get this unnatural, really crazy looking twist that just rips your smoothing and your textures to pieces. I'm going to try to get a bit of an even blend, and it's hard to balance, because in reality your skin slides over the bone, which is not something that we can simulate here. So, in essence, we actually want to try to avoid doing this particular bit of animation as much as we can, because for that to go 90, this has got to twist. We might be able to actually start it a little further. That way we can get a little bit more of a straight line. That might look a little better right there. But still, it's not ideal. However, when you go just a little bit, it's not so bad. So obviously if you go like that, that's your arm ripped off by a crocodile, but let me just double check. That's not too bad. So for now I'm going to say it's done. This right arm is done. And we'll move on to actually completing it and getting the controllers on there. The skin modifier is really not not too awful. Okay, if I take all the fingers here, bend them down, it's not terrible. Okay, it'll be able to grip a gun and look okay. And we have some control, you know, to tuck these things in a little bit here and there and whatnot. So it's not awful. It can be worked to death, worked to the bone. So let me just assume my skin pose again and show you how to mirror this over. It's pretty easy. You just come here and you activate the skin modifier and you hit mirror mode. You want your mirror plane to be Y, and you can see that I've got one side of this is looking like it's all green points, and one side of this is all blue points. And you can see I've got green and blue here, okay? It happens to be the same tone. So our green vertices are good, so we want to copy those and paste them to our blue vertices. And if you highlight over these, you can say paste green to blue bones, paste blue to green bones, paste green to blue verts, or paste blue to green verts. We're going to paste green to blue verts. Okay, we just come out of mirror mode and just check and see if there was any glaring errors, because it can and will mess up on you. So I'm just going to take all these guys and rotate them, and you can see it's really not too bad. The mesh was mirrored and the skeleton was mirrored, so there's no real reason why it won't work. If your elements aren't mirrored perfectly, you know, then this can fail. But if everything is in fact mirrored, you're usually pretty good. Okay, so both arms are officially working. Alright, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's not great. Like I said, there's more tweaking to do, and with your character, you're just gonna have to tweak it, you know, your mesh and your weights as best as you can. And the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I passed on to you was how it's best to do it in your poses, then tweak, and then just revert your poses here by using the set skin pose and assume skin pose. So really it was, you know, it's almost 2 hours of video to really hammer that point home, and hopefully you see the importance of it. So in the next part, actually I'll just go ahead, I'm just going to save this. I'll go ahead and bring in the gun by doing an import merge, and I believe that the latest is my Glock model scaling. This is that original file that just absolutely failed, and I'll use the scene material to all dupes here. I'll unhide all. I just brought in my pistol. Okay, and you can see that it's not linked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, hit Control Page down, and get the arms and hide selection here. I'm going to delete this shell. It's not part of the scene. And I'm just going to hit Control A and get rid of my grip. And then I'm going to link everything to the grip. Now I can move this around. Okay, now I can unhide all now. And I just want to once again do a scale check, which I know I did this scale check against the really terrible arms that I had before, and I do believe that the hands on this version in relation to the size of the arms are actually bigger, and you can see that if it goes back to the webbing here, if I'm looking and I link that to the webbing about there, and if I'm looking in the top view, that it's short of his palm, and I want it to at least poke out the bottom of his palm. So I do need to size this up a little bit to match these a little bit beefier hands, which I took off of a photo. It's hard to say, I might have gotten the hands of a 400-pound bouncer, and they're just not, normal hands, but they do feel a little better. You can see the finger easily reach the trigger. The good news now is when I go to do my scale test, I can actually do a bit of a pose test here to see if I can actually get this thing to sit in his hand right. And this also a good way for me to. Now I said you can't rotate in that direction, but you can do it to cheat a little bit because your hand's a little malleable, which pretty much means the gun needs to move back to about there, and I'll just let it kind of pass in. The other thing you gotta keep in mind, in reality, your web hits the gun and actually compresses, gets pushed back as you squeeze your hand around it, and that's another thing that we cannot simulate, so we fake it. Just get these 3 guys minus the mesh. I don't want any of these meshes. I got 3 objects. Control page down. Now I can kind of get the pinky out of there and just kind of keep working around it. I don't stand too much behind this this particular model, although I do, but I'm not going to say that this is the best thing I've ever done, because it's not. I think I might have mentioned before, I don't really do too many human type characters. Specialize in creatures more. Just gonna go ahead and pull that back some. Keep in mind, and then this is at an angle. He's got his gat, but really the crossover here is not going to be so visible. The gun's going to be more like that in the view, just turned on its side. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the size of the gun's okay. So I can now put it back to 0, 0, 0, and I can rotate in the view back to 0, 0, 0. Okay, to get that thing back into position. Can also go back here. Actually, for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave the hand in that pose. And like I said, there's a lot of dynamics that are happening in real life that you can't do anything about in computers, such as the fact that you can take your webbing and you can press it in with your finger, or when it wraps around an object, it actually pushes it in. There's collision there and compressing and soft body mechanics going on down to the atomic level, you know. And we got the bones. That's it. So I can pretty much rig this. So what I'm going to do is, I've already saved this scene before I brought in the gun. I'm just going to go control page down and get the arms. I'm going to delete everything else, and I'm going to save this scene as gun rigging. Okay. And now I'm ready to rig the weapon, which is going to be super easy. Pyramids is what I said I was going to use. Remember, the rotation here is 0, so I'm going to throw out a pyramid. If you look at my rotation, it too is 0, 0, 0. However, I don't want it facing that way. I'm going to affect my object only. I'm going to rotate it down 90 degrees. So if I look at my pivot, it is at 0, 0, zeros out, but it looks like it doesn't look like it is. Let me just tune the size of this pyramid real quick to be some nice even number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this, actually I'm going to move this, I'm going to have this be my root. Okay, and this is what's going to happen, is this is temporarily going to get put to the center, and I'm going to call this B underscore weapon root. Okay, I don't want to use B underscore root because I'm going to get it confused. Alright, and actually, you know what, temporarily I'm just going to move it back here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this B underscore weapon base. Okay, and what this is going to allow me to do is actually animate this away from this point. Okay, I'm going to tie all the rest of the gun pieces to this piece. I could have called it B weapon animate or something like that, but it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to call this weapon slide. I'm going to hit Alt A, and I'm going to go pivot to pivot in all axes. Okay. And what I could do is I could make it stick up a little wider, or I can make it, give it a little more depth so I can actually click on it when I go to do my animation. Okay, so that is the slide. I'll make another copy of this. I'm going to call this trigger, and I'm going to hit Alt A, and I'm going to align it to the trigger, including the axis. This one, I'm really just going to make it a little smaller, and then I'm going to take the object only, and I'm going to kind of rotate it down there, and then I'm going to mess with the depth until it sticks out the side, so I got something I can grab here. It doesn't really matter. These are all zeroed out. Okay. Now I want to get my mag, weapon mag, and I'm going to align it to the mag, pivot to pivot, all axes plus orientation. And this one I am going to affect the object only, go by local, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees that way, so that when I move this by local, it slides right in and out of the mag perfectly. Now this guy's at 0, 0, 0. So this is what I can use to animate the weapon. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it in the front here. Look at my top view. One of the things I've noticed is that this isn't centered. You can see if I look down the line of the bullet, I need to get this centered, which is just going to make things better for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this bullet, which has a center point that is right down the center channel of the gun. I'm going to go to view here, and I'm going to use my coordinates here. And I'm going to zoom in and in and in and in and in and in as far as I can go until I can get that lined up as close as I can. Okay, I'm going to view P here. Now you can see that my bone is much more centered. It's just going to work out better to get the gun centered, which I don't know at what point I messed that up. You can see that this needs to be centered in the Y. I believe all the rest of them are centered in the Y because I didn't. No. Look at the trigger, because they all got moved over. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit Control Page down on this guy to get all of its children and break them. And then I'm going to take this thing's pivot point and I'm going to zero it out. I'm going to take this guy's pivot and zero it just in the Y. Same thing here. And same thing here, because everything got moved over 0.001. So now I'm right down the line here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these objects manually and hide them. Including this. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I need that bullet. I need a bone on that bullet. So let's just go 0.5 and 0.5 and 1. Okay, I just center that down the bullet. I'll just move it to the back of the bullet so I can click on that easy, and I'll make the depth stick out the front a little bit. So I got two little spots. I can just click on this guy. So now let me take the bullet itself and hide it. Now what I want to do is I want to set up my hierarchy real quick. Now this is my root, this is my base, this is my slide, this is my bullet, it should be my trigger, it should be weapon trigger, yep, and weapon mag, okay? So what I want to do is I want to get all this stuff minus this base and link it to the base. And then I want to take the base and link it to the root. So if I move the root, everything goes with it, but if I move the base, everything goes with that. And I also want to link the bullet to the mag. So if I move the mag, that all goes with it, okay? So now I can unhide all. Now there's two ways I can do this. It really does not make any difference whatsoever. I can attach everything together, and when I go to do my skin modifier, I can choose by element and just have this be one mesh that's skinned to the thing, just like I did the arms, which is one arm skinned to a skeleton. Or I could do them individually. I could just say add the skin modifier, okay, bones add, and really all I need to add is the weapon base, because none of this stuff animates. Okay, take this guy, oops, I don't want to edit the envelopes, and add the slide. Take this guy and add the trigger. Take this guy, the mag, and add weapon mag. Take this bullet and add a weapon bullet. And you can see that the gun goes with my root. It also goes with my base. Slide goes with the slide. Mag goes with the mag. The bullet sticks with the mag. And the bullet itself can be moved around individually. Okay. So I have full control and my trigger is working. Alright. I can export this pretty much exactly the same as I can export this as one mesh. It's the same thing. So I'm just going to save this. The only difference is when I go to look here, I've got mag, slide, trigger, and bullet and grip, whereas it would actually just be Glock instead of having all these separate objects. But if I do combine it all together, all I got to do is just add all the bones to it and just make sure that I say select by element and just pick all of this noise going on up here and skin that right to the slide bone, and just select by element to get the trigger and skin that to the trigger, select by element here and just do that to the mag, select by element, get the bullet, you know, and yada yada yada. But there's no difference whatsoever in doing it either way. So now that I'm saved here, I'm going to open up my arms rigging file, and I can bring that in here, but I'm not going to yet. I'm going to actually stop the video before I do any combining. So really we've just rigged the arms and we've rigged the gun to have their skin modifier. So now they are animatable. Okay. If I rotate all these around all crazy, it's all rigged and skinned. Okay. I always like to do this for some weird reason. Looks like a weird, funky, boneless man dance. I am the weird creature. Okay. But it's all skin. It's all working. Next, in the next video, I'm going to add IK controller. I'm going to add my weapon root that I'm going to use to socket. And then I'm going to bring in the gun and I'm going to tie the two together. And I'll show you how everything's done. I could technically export this right now as is, and I'll get a PSK into UDK. I could do the same with the gun, and I'm pretty much good to export it. But really, it's not gonna. I don't need to do it yet. It's just good. It's gonna look fine. It's gonna look just like this. I don't need to confirm that it's gonna work, because it's gonna work, you know. I might as well just start setting everything up and try to set a good idle pose and export that to see if it's, you know, if all that's going to work first, and just do it in one shot. So I'm going to stop, and when I come back I will be setting up all my controllers and everything else.